Women who eat blueberries twice a week have a 64% lower risk of macular degeneration. 64%, and fewer than 1 in 10 older adults eat them that often. That gap between what the research shows and what most people are actually doing is exactly why we're here today. I want to talk about blueberries and your eyes. Not in a vague, antioxidants are good for you way. In a very specific, here's what the data actually says way. Because a study came out of Harvard in 2024, the first of its kind, tracking over 36,000 women for more than a decade. And the numbers are striking enough that if you're not eating blueberries regularly right now, you're probably going to start after this video. Here's what we're going to cover. First, I'm going to show you what the research actually found, the specific numbers and why they matter. Then I'll explain what's happening inside the eye when you eat blueberries consistently, because the mechanism is genuinely interesting and it'll make the habit stick. And finally, I'm going to give you the most practical, sustainable way to actually do this, including why before bed turns out to be the ideal time to make it a habit you keep. This one is easy, and that's what I love about it. So let's get into the study, because the details matter here. In 2024, researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital and Harvard Medical School published results from the Women's Health Study. Over 36,000 women, aged 45 and older, followed for more than a decade. They tracked dietary habits, documented eye exams, and logged every confirmed diagnosis of macular degeneration, the leading cause of permanent vision loss in adults over 60. Then they looked at who ate blueberries and how often. The results broke down like this. Women who ate 1 serving of blueberries per week, just one, had a 32% lower risk of developing AMD compared to women who ate none. Women who bumped that up to 2 or more servings per week, 64% lower risk. Think about that for a second. Not a medication, not a supplement with a long list of side effects. A handful of berries, twice a week. And the risk of one of the most feared vision conditions in older adults dropped by nearly 2/3. This is the first large-scale study to specifically examine blueberry intake and macular degeneration. And the lead researcher from Harvard called the findings significant enough to suggest blueberries may be important for eye health in a way that hasn't been widely communicated to patients. Now, a few honest things worth saying about this research. It's an observational study, meaning researchers tracked what people ate and what happened to their eyes over time, rather than randomly assigning people to eat or not eat blueberries. That's the strongest kind of population data available for a question like this, but it means we can describe a strong association, not a guaranteed cause and effect. The researchers accounted for other dietary habits, smoking, blood pressure, and other risk factors. But as with any study of this type, you hold the finding with appropriate confidence, not absolute certainty. What it does tell us, clearly, people who eat blueberries regularly have dramatically better odds when it comes to their eye health. And when you see a clear pattern, more blueberries, lower risk, getting stronger with each step up. That's exactly what makes researchers take a finding like this seriously. When people understand why something works, they're much more likely to actually do it. So let's talk about what's going on inside the eye when you eat blueberries regularly, because this part surprised me. The key compounds in blueberries are called anthocyanins. These are the pigments that give blueberries their deep blue-purple color. And unlike a lot of nutrients that do their work elsewhere in the body, anthocyanins have something unusual going on. They are specifically absorbed into eye tissue. Researchers fed pigs' diets containing varying amounts of blueberries and then examined their eye tissue afterwards. The anthocyanins were detectable in the eye, and the more blueberries in the diet, the more anthocyanins found in the eye. This isn't something that happens with every nutrient. It suggests the eye actively concentrates these compounds, which points to why they matter specifically for vision rather than just general health. Once they're in the retinal tissue, here's what anthocyanins appear to do. The cells most vulnerable in macular degeneration, a thin layer deep in the eye that supports the actual light-sensing cells, face two main threats as we age: damage from light exposure and accumulated waste, and a kind of accelerated cellular aging where cells stop functioning properly before they should. Lab research published in the British Journal of Nutrition tested blueberry anthocyanins directly on these cells under both conditions. The anthocyanins protected them against aging-related decline, against light-induced damage. In both cases, the cells that received anthocyanins survived better and functioned longer. I think about it like this. Your eye's light-sensing cells are working constantly. Every moment you're awake, they're processing light, converting it to signals, handling a metabolic load that few tissues in the body can match. Over decades, that adds up. Damage accumulates. Cells that can't be replaced start to fail. Anthocyanins appear to slow that process, absorbing the damaging molecules before they can do their worst, and helping the cells that do the work of vision stay functional longer. That's not a magic bullet. It's a consistent input that tips the odds in your favor, which is exactly what the population data reflects. And this is where the mechanism matters practically. Anthocyanins don't stockpile in eye tissue indefinitely. They accumulate with regular intake. A single large serving occasionally doesn't replicate the effect of steady, frequent consumption. The studies showing protection aren't measuring a one-time dose, they're measuring a habit, which brings us to how you actually build one. The research tells us twice a week is where you see meaningful protection. At least one serving, a half cup, roughly a small handful, is the threshold that showed up in the data. That's genuinely achievable, but only if you actually do it consistently over time. And this is where most people fall apart, not because the habit is hard, but because there's no anchor for it. Blueberries sit in the fridge. Monday goes by, Tuesday. You remember on Thursday, eat a handful, feel good about it, then forget for 2 weeks. Sound familiar? This is where the timing matters. Not because of any special biological window that makes blueberries more potent at night, but because of how habits actually work. The most durable daily habits are the ones attached to something you already do without thinking. Brushing your teeth, getting into bed, making your evening tea. These are anchors, automatic behaviors that have been running on autopilot for decades. New thing, old anchor, and suddenly it runs on autopilot too. Before bed works beautifully for this. You're winding down. The kitchen is still accessible. A small bowl of blueberries, fresh or frozen, doesn't matter. Takes about 30 seconds to prepare and is genuinely satisfying as a light evening snack. It replaces nothing. It costs almost nothing. And once it's attached to the going to bed routine, it stops requiring any decision-making at all. You just do it. Frozen blueberries, by the way, are worth knowing about. They're picked at peak ripeness and frozen immediately, which actually preserves the anthocyanin content better than fresh blueberries that have been sitting in transit or on a shelf for a week. A bag in the freezer lasts for months. You always have them. That reliability is part of what makes this habit sustainable in a way that buy fresh blueberries regularly sometimes isn't. Now, here's where I want you to sit with something for a moment. Macular degeneration develops silently. You won't feel it happening. There are no warning shots. Most people who lose central vision to AMD spend years thinking their eyes are fine, maybe a little tired, maybe just needing a new prescription, while the damage accumulates underneath. By the time it's obvious, the vision is already gone, not the ability to see in some general sense. The specific ability to read the label on your medication bottle, to make out your grandchild's face across the dinner table, to see the street sign clearly enough to trust yourself driving at night. The people who avoid that outcome aren't necessarily the ones who saw the best doctors or got the best treatment. A lot of them are simply the ones who ate well, consistently, for years before it ever became a problem. That's how prevention works. Invisibly, gradually, through choices that don't feel dramatic in the moment, because nothing dramatic is happening yet. A bowl of blueberries before bed isn't going to feel like you're protecting your eyesight. It's going to feel like having a snack. That's the point. The best protective habits are the ones that don't require anything of you except showing up. What I find most hopeful about all of this is how low the bar is. This isn't a clinical intervention. It's not a medication with a copay and a list of contraindications. It's fruit. It's delicious. It costs a few dollars a week. And the research suggests it may be one of the most meaningful things you can do for your long-term vision. More meaningful, honestly, than most people would ever guess. You're going to lose count of how many things you try over the years in the name of your health. Most of them will feel like effort. This one doesn't have to. Start tonight. Small bowl, freezer stash sorted tomorrow. That's it. If you found this useful, subscribe. New videos every week on the small things that make a big difference for your health after 60. I'll see you in the next one.